Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather forecast for the week of February 22nd through the 28th. Nice package. The week and month ends right on a Sunday, so next week can go right into March monthly and the first week of March. And just want to make a little comment now. On Saturday last week, Mercury did station direct, so we are coming out of the Mercury retrograde period of the last 3 weeks, and of course still in the shadow of it for a little while, but we should be feeling things starting to release. And it's interesting, in that Aquarius, in the air sign there, that rule technology, electricity, things like that, we did see, as I suspected, that some issues with power grids, this coming from a storm hitting the United States and knocking power grids off in Texas and other parts of the southeast. This is kind of interesting to see how that Mercury retrograde, which we know always causes issues with, communication and the delays and technology issues and stuff, and we kind of saw how that plays out. What I thought was kind of interesting too is, here it was in Aquarius, and going backwards, getting closer and closer to the Saturn Uranus square, getting closer and closer to Saturn actually. And so, by orb actually conjuncting Saturn and squaring Uranus. So you can see how that trigger worked there, where we had the perfect storm basically. And yes, a big storm ended up hitting Texas, and Mercury, of course, also has a lot to do with the wind and weather, which was part of the issue, and the coolness of that wind and knocking temperatures way down and other things. So really, here we get to see, we didn't get an exact square, but you can see even getting within that orb was we had this energy that was enough to trigger in certain areas where other factors came in, the power grid going down. So really interesting, if it had gotten back to the exact orb, how much wider scale maybe that would have been. So we get a little bit of an example of astrology at work there, and very interesting stuff. And in light of that too, people have asked me about locality readings and things like that, and that's something obviously that can be done on a personal level, and then that can actually even help pinpoint events on the planet where they may be more apt to hit. So when you do an astrolocality chart or reading, you can see where the planets are most potent on the globe or on the earth for you, or for an area in location to what the planets are doing on a particular day or time period. So that's always, really interesting information to know with astrology on a locational level. But yeah, really interesting to see how that energy manifested. Now this week is like last week. Remember, it wasn't I kind of felt not as intense really of a week as it's been for many weeks before that, although we do have the square of Saturn Uranus always playing in the background, and we did have Mercury retrograde going too, so there was a lot of intensity going on, but kind of felt like some of the energy easing off. And this week a little bit, to me, kind of a continuation of that. We're not as in the vice grip stressfulness of we were in January and December, but it's still pretty intense energy going on. And this week's main event is a full moon at 9 degrees Virgo next Saturday, so we'll talk about that. Also, Venus is going into Pisces. So remember last week the sun went into Pisces, so Venus is going to be going there too. And some interesting energy going on in relation to the full moon with Uranus, and then also a Mars trine Pluto early in this week. So some good energy to work with this week. The week starts a little mellow for sure. Monday and Tuesday are kind of quiet. Mercury still kind of slow, starting to move forward, so you can still feel effects of the Mercury retrograde slowly lighten up as those days go on. But there is one interesting aspect on Tuesday. Vesta, which is, the asteroid that represents the sister archetype, so like and represents groups that we share similar behaviors or behavioral patterns or rituals with, is actually square the nodal axis. So that's kind of interesting, because that means there's a lot of stress going on within groups that share similar things, rituals and behaviors and things. Like maybe they're, within groups that you may associate with, there's things going on that are challenging, need to be looked at, and and are kind of like karmic in nature, connected to the group in somehow, and trying to find maybe some kind of new path or new to adjust to what was going on in the past and go into what is the next role for this group in the future. And maybe like maybe the original reasons those groups got together may be getting a little bit outmoded or something. So like now is the time for like members of those groups to kind of like come together, rise to the challenge of like, where do we want to steer this ship now? So an interesting aspect. It's not one that's major, on a personal level, but really can affect maybe some of the group stuff going on. Now, on Wednesday is the Mars trine Pluto. So this aspect will be in effect pretty strongly on Tuesday and Thursday also, and can really even feel it most of the week because Mars not moving as quickly as the other inner planets. So this is really a nice, flowing, powerful energy where we can really change things in our environment, that we're in a position of power that is not being attracting like opposition or conflict with others right now. Instead, we're able to focus it and actually work well with others and groups to elicit a lot of change, and change that's deep and transformational and that's lasting. So we can do that in our personal lives and in our group lives. And it's just like the more we're focused on what's best for everyone involved, the more our results will be will go as far as that is. Because with a trine, you have to work with it. It's not going to just happen for you. So the more you put into it, the more you get out of it, is the point. But that energy is available there for doing that kind of really deeply transformative type of energy that can really reform situations around you in your life, and just can really further projects along too, things that you've already become involved in. This is a time when they can really flow well. Thursday is when Venus goes into Pisces. So the sun went into Pisces last week. Now Venus there, and Mercury, as it starts to speed up, will eventually get over to Pisces too, in a couple of weeks. So Venus is really comfortable in Pisces. It is exalted there, and reason being is Pisces is such a receptive sign, and Venus is is the most receptive planet besides the moon, and so it wants to let in. It's very soft, compassionate, beautiful kind of energy that wants to merge with others, with those around us, with anything, and is really loves like really fine, soft, beautiful kind of things, like just like adding like a romance to like all your life and the way that you look at that. So it's really beautiful for easily getting along with others, and really can get you into kind of like soulmate type relationships with people on whatever level that may be, which definitely can include the romantic level, obviously, with Venus, but it's also very artistic too. This really, remember that Venus on a personal level is where we output our art. When we get the inspiration, it's outputted through Venus. So like, this is the Venus that is really, really, can really get into an artistically inspired and creative mode. And so that's really a sweet part of the Venus in Pisces too. And so you'd be there, about 3 weeks, and it's just a time when things that Venus loves to be in Pisces, so things feel really good for the most part on the relationship level, on the artistic level, things like that. So on Friday is when the Jupiter trines the North Node, and I actually mentioned that in the monthly, and I just kind of feel like, once again, this is an opportunity where like a larger vision, bringing in others, creating groups, associations with people who have similar values and philosophies, it is like really where you want to steer this right now. It's interesting because the North Node is in Gemini, so like that's, like I've said several times over the past few months, that it really wants that connection on the local level. It really wants us to discern through information. So now Jupiter in Aquarius is like, triggering that thing to expand out right now, and make more connections within the context of that localized energy, that bring in more, and to bring in more information now, like especially after Mercury retrograde too, where we've had a chance to kind of contemplate on the inside a lot of what was inputted for 2 or 3 months before that. Now we're kind of ready to take in and receive more energy again on an intellectual level, where all these air signs are functioning. So it's interesting. So this can really bring in like expanded associations and groups that like widen your knowledge base, your experience base, and broaden your understanding of humanity and society, culture, and many other things like that, spirituality. It's a real positive energy, once again, to work with, and it's a trine, so once again, you need to go and make something happen with it. It's not going to force you to do anything with it if you're not, willing to get up and do something about it. Also that day, one other thing that's kind of interesting, a little bit of Mars. Remember Venus and Mars have been like, they were square one another exact last week. So they kind of still a little bit in that. They're in the orb, separating. And Venus had conjuncted Pallas Athene on Sunday. And so Mars is actually going to square Pallas Athene this week on Friday, which can once again bring up some challenges with the individual stance versus some group stance. So that can be a little bit of a challenging energy there. And then, the main event of the week is this full moon in Virgo at 9 degrees on Saturday. So the sun will be sextiling Uranus exact on Thursday, but it's tied in to this full moon, so it'll be like, with that sextile is also tied into this, the moon will be trining Uranus in this in this full moon. Interesting too, the sun is conjunct Venus in Pisces during this full moon, so the full moon is opposite Venus too, that means. And there's also a yod going on with this full moon. There's Saturn is tightening up to a sextile with Chiron, and they are both quincunx the full moon. So there's some interesting stuff going on here, you know, to unpack on this full moon. It's not the most intense one, but I mean, right away, when you look at the axis, it's on the Virgo Pisces axis, which is this service axis. There's that conflict right there of the exacting energy of Virgo and wanting like some kind of procedure or book of rules to go by and to be orderly, to have some discipline, to take care of the details, and can sink into a judgmental or hypercritical way of being with things that rub it the wrong way. So you know, Pisces can do that. That's why they're opposite one another. Pisces is pretty much a lot of opposite that energy, where it's kind of going out and feeling things out and taking lots in and not acting logically, you know, just absorbing stuff instead and not really going through the details, but just kind of taking in and floating along, not being detailed about it. So very, very interesting. And although, you know, it's interesting too, because Pisces actually has a lot more affinity with the moon itself than Virgo does. So it's kind of like, you know, Virgo's kind of like, okay, you know, I'm in this, you know, in moon in Virgo, it's triggering the emotional part of Virgo, and Pisces has like more of a connection with emotions many times than Virgo does. So there's that conflict of just wanting thing, you know, the Virgo full moon wanting things more detailed, more practical, more disciplined than what Pisces sun really wants, that wants to just kind of float along and merge and take things in. So really, the conflict, you know, you can see the conflict right there. Now, what's interesting about this one too is with the sun coming in, I mean, with Venus coming in too, with the sun in Pisces, it adds like a charm to the sun part of the equation that once again can kind of like irk Virgo in the sense of like, don't try to like, you know, charm me in or by, you know, I want the facts still, I want the details, like don't try to win me over by just charming me in this Venusian Piscean way. So that can actually trigger Virgo's hypercriticism and you know, just concern of things not being done properly, which it can feel threatened by when the moon is in Virgo, you know, on an emotional level. So that's kind of interesting, you know. And then we have the whole thing going on with the Yod and Uranus in this, and you know, first off, the Yod is Saturn is getting close to an exact sextile with Chiron, which, you know, does give us new opportunities to build and structure and learn and heal, like change situations. Like the opportunity is out there to do that. And so, you know, with the Yod is like so much of like, it's more fateful than the normal other aspects, in the sense that it seems like things push us along to force us to have to react to them that are outside of us when a Yod is operating. So there's that kind of like a degree of faithfulness, as if like you're like on the roller coaster and you can't get off until the ride is over. So, but it's interesting, but like at the same time, it's not going to like operate in everybody's life. It's kind of like certain people and situations that are ready for that, you know, hand of fate, so to speak, to push them to the next level that's required, is what is going to are the ones and the situations that are going to get like this, some kind of event that basically forces someone or a situation in a certain direction. Um, so it should have something to do with, this building of structure somehow that's a more supportive and healing and learning and teaching type of experience for us. But then what's interesting to me about this too is because we know, Saturn and Uranus are having that square. Then we have the moon trining Uranus and the sun sextiling Uranus at the same time all this week, during the full moon. So what that means to me is like we're going to get some kind of idea that is going to inspire us in some way on an emotional level to, take some of these opportunities, the sun sextiling the Uranus and Saturn sextiling the Chiron, to bring some new idea into form that is going to be supportive and healing and a learning type of experience for us. So it's a really interesting full moon. I don't see it as being like super challenging, as long as we can, stay out of the hypercritical, judgmental Virgo when emotions are triggered. But at the same time, like, it can, for certain people, it seems like there'll be like this push towards, bringing that in. Maybe that would be it, even, is that, the people who are going to be getting that yacht, or the situations that are going to be getting that yacht, are going to be planting that Uranian Promethean spark that Uranus is bringing the moon into, so that those people, those situations, are the ones that can start to build the new healing structure. That, so we can, it's a full moon, so we should be able to see this a little bit more clearly. But, there may be a little frustration, though, with definitely with some relationships, in the sense of like people who you see that represent the Sun Venus charming thing, not like you're feeling like they're not, getting taking care of what they need to take care of on a practical level to move ahead. So, and that could be in relationship to you, or situations, once again, that they're involved in or you're both involved in. So it could be that could be definitely some challenge. But, look to the houses that, the full moon falls into in your chart to see, the axis of houses that it's going to be affecting in your life at 9 degrees. And then anyone who has 9-degree planets, 8, 9, 10-degree planets or points, are going to get aspected by this too, and then that will actually color the flavor of the full moon for you too. So it's an inch. I wouldn't call it the most challenging one, and I see, like, there's a possibility for some opportunities here to get some things like changed, that that we can see that need reformation and need changing, and can start rebuilding some of the structure that Saturn and Uranus can tear down. So things that have been torn down already maybe have this opportunity to build from the bottom up this week and get planted a seed that's something much more stable than what collapsed or fell before this. So real interesting there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, oh, and then also, yeah, the last thing on the full moon too. So the ruler of the full moon is Mercury, right? And so Mercury has turned direct and is, starting to speed up, and it's actually conjunct Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius right now. So that also shows that, like, any kind of projects that were delayed can now get a restart going again, or even still, and as I said back in when the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn occurred back in December, still opportunities to get new things going and have that energy going that is planting seeds for a long, almost 20-year cycle ahead. So, Mercury can get some help right now from Saturn and Jupiter's balance together and help plant some of those seeds that can possibly bring a lot of nice energy. And it's also, just thought, there should be a real nice balance between them all that'll back up that full moon. And if you have those things going, that energy. So, yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to mention was Sunday, the sun is semi-square Pluto. So that can be a little bit frustrating. You may be bumping heads with authorities or some issues that, like power control issues may come up between you and others. It's one of those things, sometimes you just kind of need to look at the situation yourself. Certain situations may be breaking down, and you kind of just got to let them go when it's a semi-square and let them continue to develop before you can really do much about them. So it can be a little bit frustrating for those who want to have, like, the authority or control of something that, they can't really do much about at that point. But it's, once again, wanting reformation ultimately. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I am available for all kinds of readings. And we also have classes going. So my email is matthuE823@gmail.com. If you want a reading, just drop me an email and we'll talk prices. Natal charts, which is your birth chart reading. Predictive, where we look at the next year and see what kind of energy is coming into your life for the next year. Do children's charts, relationships. And so I keep forgetting, and people have reminded me, astrocartography, which is, if you're looking at other places where you possibly want to live, how the planets will change in your chart, in relationship to the cross of matter and the houses, and how that can align things and change things in your life and make certain planets more acute, make other planets less acute. So yeah, that's a real nice service to have too, that I've many times forget to mention, because there's a lot of different services. Election charts, horary charts, things like that too. So anything like that you're interested in, let me know. Definitely. And then the classes are going. 5 are up. I'm just about to put the 6th one up, and it's going to be partially video now too, so you can take a look at some of the charts and stuff. So that will be on the cross of matter and rising signs, and already have gone through the zodiac. The classes are available as one-offs or sequentially if you want to learn astrology as a student, and they are $25 a class unless you are a student already and you have a student ID to show me. Then there's $5 off. Right now available on Dropbox, so anyone who wants them, just let me know, pay the fee. I give you the ability to access the classes. So I think that just about does it for this week. Next week it'll be March, so we'll do the monthly and the weekly, most likely together next Monday. We'll probably just paste the two of them together into one episode. So yeah, so like, see if you're one of those people that this full moon is calling, to like, act through that yacht and, create some new structures in things that are already, falling apart and that you're seeing under the light of that full moon. And then, bring in that Virgo, discernment, helping to build the structure. So getting all the details taken care of and possibly reaching that idealism that Pisces represents, and someday in the future with whatever that form ultimately becomes. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I will see you all next week.